everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie Insidious, The Red Door. I was a fan of Insidious 1 and 2 while the next two films tapered off, so I wanted to see if this could bring back the franchise. The synopsis is as follows. Josh Lambert heads east to drop his son Dalton off at school. However, Dalton's college dream soon becomes a living nightmare when the repressed demons of his past suddenly return to haunt them both. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. The Red Door takes place after the events of Insidious 2. Since then, Josh and his wife have gotten a divorce, and Dalton and Josh remain very distant. Josh drops Dalton off at college and then proceeds to try to go to the doctor to figure out why he can't remember certain things. And the nightmares of all of this and their decisions follow. Both Josh and Dalton start seeing things and begin questioning reality as they know it. I guess all I have to say with the plot is that this isn't what I hoped was going to happen in continuing this franchise. Because honestly, the whole story they told in this movie did not do it for me. The first 20 minutes of the movie were a bit of a wash, and the rest of the movie was just kind of boring and uneventful. I looked at Insidious 1 and Insidious 2 and I was like, why did I enjoy these movies so much? The answer is James Wan. And while he assisted in the production of this film, he didn't direct it. But the point is, by the end of the film, you're just kind of like, that was bland and kind of just a sludge and blur that wasn't told in a very interesting way. So for me, plot gets a thumbs down. 2 is family friendliness. Insidious The Red Door is rated PG-13. There's a mild to moderate bit of profanity, some sexual, sensual dialogue, and a handful of scary and creepy sequences. But I also gotta say this movie wasn't as scary as its predecessors, which was also a bit of a disappointment. But for me, the demonic content mixed with the astral projection, mixed with the profanity and the sensual dialogue that happens while maintaining the PG-13 rating, all assist in this movie not being family friendly. So for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. The acting performances in this movie were okay. Ty Simpkins, I think, had the best acting performance, especially when he was on screen with Sinclair Daniel, and those are probably the best interactions that this movie had. Patrick Wilson directed this movie and acted in it, but I thought that his acting performance was probably the least inspired out of all of the films. And I guess that goes for most of the other performances as well. Some of them were decent, the dialogue was decent, but some of the performances were just kind of empty and bland, like they were reading off of a script, but there wasn't any emotion behind it. So for me, acting and script get a 50-50. 4 is character development. The unfortunate thing about this movie is that it operates only with information that you already know. There isn't really any new information introduced about these characters. There's a pretty lame attempt at character development between Dalton and his dad. Again, Dalton and Chris probably get the most development in their friendship together out of any other sort of relationship in this movie. But it felt out of place at times and didn't amount to much by the end of the film. Nobody else was given an attempt at character development in this movie, and they weren't a part of it for very long. So for me, character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. Obviously one of the staples of these movies is the red-faced boy, but even the 1 or 2 times that you saw him in this movie, it looked different and honestly not as scary. And like I mentioned before, this was the least scary out of all of these films. Like, I feel like there was honestly less than 5 scary moments in this movie where there was naturally creepy moments or jump scares, and that was so disappointing. What CGI they did use, I feel like, was okay, but not great, but it just seemed like they didn't try very hard to use effective visuals. So for me, visuals and CGI get a 50-50. And 6 is rewatchability. Insidious The Red Door is an hour and 47 minutes long, but due to the boring, messy storytelling and lack of scary moments, this movie felt really long. I was really hoping that by making a movie that takes place after Insidious 1 and 2 that the interesting story would continue, but it appears that without James Wan at the helm, these movies do not do very well. And while the 2 prequels that were made were not very good at all, there is an argument to be made that this is the worst Insidious movie. So unfortunately for me, rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give Insidious The Red Door a 3 out of 10. This movie had a couple decent acting performances and some halfway decent dialogue between Dalton and Chris, but that was it. The plot and storytelling of this movie were boring and convoluted. There was no character development. There was a huge lack of actually frightening moments in the movie. And the point you get at the end of the film is just kind of like, okay, that was boring. But it really seems like these movies have lost their way. And unfortunately at this point, I don't know if they can find their way back. So with all that in mind, Insidious The Red Door is not worth going to watch in theaters and may not be worth watching at all. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Insidious The Red Door, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.